is that I've been working with Fila now almost, what, 14, 15 years, some big amount. I think I've been asked this question about anti-slip every other week for the past 14 years. And Marco has been around probably for 30 years, has probably been asked the same question every other week for 30 years. So people have wanted anti-slip from Fila for a really long time. And I'm proud to say that when we came up with something, that I think is very intelligent and is going to be market friendly. And so I think it's going to be an interesting thing for you to investigate and get involved in. For some of you who are contractors, this could be a way to develop a business. There are people that we are talking with who this is what they do full time, is that they do anti-slip applications on people's floors and outdoor, indoor, commercial, residential, whatever needs to happen. And so this is something that actually could put some of you in business if you want to. We will be trying to set up a little bit of a network to do this, and people that we can recommend. There are people that we know that do both. They will test using the bot that we'll talk about shortly, that gives you the American DCOF. They'll test it before treatment, after it's been treated, and once it's installed. If you're treating it like loose before you install it, then once it's installed, they'll test it again and give some kind of certification that you're getting a 0.42 or a 0.50 or whatever it is, according to the ASTM standard, American standard. They'll be able to give that level of precision. Of course, that costs money, but that will be, we do know people that do that sort of thing, and so we are developing this. For a lot of you, the issue will be a different one, where your customers say, hey, listen, I just want to be a little bit more, feel more safe in my shower pan in my bathroom. What can I do? And we'll have a version of this that's more of that sort of pulling that tooth, if you will, or satisfying that market need. So there's going to be a professional side, and there's going to be a end user DIY, small area. I just need something that I feel more comfortable with side. They both give professional results that can be verified, but it's a matter of the ease of use and the size of the application. Anyways, we'll get into that. All right, so making surfaces slip just safer is the whole theme. We tried to start out with FAQs because we're trying to ask and answer things that we think are obvious for you. And by the way, we'll have all the materials for you distributors and you retailers and people that are along those lines, and you specifiers. We'll be providing the information that you need in order to present this to somebody and show them what's available in the market. I'm getting a little bit of echo, so somebody is not muted that probably should be. Anyways, a floor may be slippery when there's loss of adherence with the foot, wearing shoes, barefoot on the surface, etc. Generally, this is a wet condition that is the most worrisome to people. So generally, dry is not the big deal. And so that is kind of the point of this slide. And that's the focus of this product, and the focus of our presentation really is to talk about protection against slipperiness when wet. There are two types of anti-slip solution in the market that we're aware of. Actually, it would be three, but as far as anti-slip solutions, you could put some kind of coating on there, and some of our competitors and some of the other people we know put coatings on there. The issue there is that then you have to reapply it sometimes every month, sometimes every 6 months, sometimes every year. Or else you have a micro etching treatment, which is what ours is. There are other things like this in the market, and these are considered permanent changes to the surface of the material. That's a very important concept that we'll talk about more. The third thing that I would have added there would be that there's just the obvious one that manufacturers at the factory put some corundum or something in the tile or stone surface that that makes it more slip resistant, but that's a manufacturing thing. So we have two versions. We have Pro Grip and we have Easy Grip. So obviously Pro Grip is for the pros and Easy Grip is more for the end users and the DIY folks. You'll see there's a difference in the amount. So you get a liter with the Pro Grip and you get a half a liter for the Easy Grip. So if someone wants to do that shower pan or something around their shower, they can do that without having to get something that's going to be way too much. So how they work, this is really important. Pro Grip and Easy Grip create micro abrasions in the actual surface. So we're going to do a little bit of dipping into some technical chemical stuff, but not too much. If you have more of those questions, we do have smarter people than me that paid attention to chemistry in high school. But let me just tell you what I can tell you. And that is that it reacts with the silica or silica-like materials that are in the composition of the material. So porcelain tile, for instance, has feldspar, it has silica, it has a lot of these type of minerals that this microabrasion actually reacts with that and creates the microabrasions it reacts with those materials in the surface of the flooring. So there's a significant increase in slip resistant, and that is something that has to be measured on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the materials are. So certain materials will react more than others, and that is why we can't give you a blanket statement about exactly what it is. But I will tell you that when I saw it over in Europe, I saw it myself for 2 trade shows, and it was a significant increase. My kind of off-the-cuff math was it could have been almost a 50% increase in slip resistance that I saw in the measurements that we were doing live with the pendulum method. So these, again, are not coatings. They are permanent treatments. So the big difference, and this is really important for you to understand right from the beginning, is that Pro Grip reacts in just 1 minute. So you put this, and we'll go through exactly how to apply it, but you put the Pro Grip liquid on the surface, and in just 1 minute, it will do the trick. And then you rinse it, wipe it off, and neutralize the surface. Easy Grip is intended for people that are just a little bit more not quite so Johnny on the spot and professional. It reacts in 10 minutes. So you've got more time to do like the whole area, wait your 10 minutes, and then do your rinse and your neutralizing, and you're done. And it's actually easier to do for the normal people among us that are not necessarily the professionals. And also, as I mentioned before, if you have large areas, you're going to want the liter. And if you have small areas, you'd probably want the Easy Grip anyway. So if you're an end user and you just have a small area, Easy Grip makes more sense. Whereas Pro Grip is really thought through for the larger areas. And this is some of the communication that we have. I'm playing for you the videos for a very specific reason, not just because we like to show videos, but for you as a retailer, as a distributor, as a specifier, if you want to send something to your customer so they can watch it and understand it, so you don't have to worry about explaining it, we have 2 types of videos. We have what we call the emotional video, which is just a quick overview for the normal folk. And then we have the professional video that shows you how to actually apply it. So this is our, I'll call it the overview video. Let her rip. let me make one really important comment from the very start of this whole thing, is that we're getting into the weeds on this seminar, but I want to really express that this is a very simple product to apply. This is a very simple product to understand. It's a very simple product to use. It's a very simple product to communicate to your customers. So even though we're getting into all the kinds of crazy details, the simplicity of the product is what I want to express. As my wife would say, if I, Jeff, can do this, anybody can do this. It's really simple to do. So don't be kind of put off by all the details that we'll get into. It's very easy for a normal person to apply. So even if you're a professional or you're not a professional, you can do this very simply. So let me just say that. Let's get into what the actual process is so you understand. Number one, we really make it mandatory for you to run a test. The smartest thing to do is to take a loose piece of the tile and apply it on there and get a feel for what that slip resistance is and how this works. And so you get an idea of how much time you need to use to get the result that you want. So if you do, like for instance, let's talk about Pro Strip first, or Pro Grip first, pardon me. Pro Grip, it activates in 1 minute. Now, as you do a test on this, and you have a very specific use that requires a very strong slip resistance, you may think this is not enough. Maybe I need to do this for 2 minutes. And so you can actually get more slip resistance, a higher DCOF, and just more grip by doing it for 2 minutes. And that's why you would want to, if you are in a situation where you have higher needs, more than a 0.42, maybe you need a 0.5 in the DCOF because you're in a certain area that requires that, you may need to go longer. And if you do it on an uninstalled piece, you have the advantage of being able to do this testing ahead of time on your specific surface, so you know exactly how much time. That's really the time factor is what you're looking for. Let me say that we've done a lot of testing, 100 different surfaces. We've done probably 70% of that is porcelain, 30% is stones, and we'll go through exactly which stones later. So we've done a lot of surfaces, and we do see variations, but we see that for a lot of the surfaces that we've done, that 1 minute does get you at least to a 0.42, or the equivalent in the UK, Italian, German standards. So we can get there in a lot of cases with just 1 minute of application. There are some surfaces that require 2 minutes. And that will get you to those thresholds that you need to get to for whatever you're specifying, speaking especially to you folk. Most people, you put 1 minute and you go with your hand or your foot and you go, yep, that's fine, I'm good. So there's also that part of the market, just saying, I just need to have, and if you have it on a piece of tile, and you can go to your customer and you can say, here's an uninstalled piece that is untreated, here's one treated, and you spray some water on both of them, they will be able to test it with their hand or their foot and immediately feel the difference. Let me make another comment that's really important for you to understand, and that is that this, if you put this on a tile, let's use porcelain tile because it's the easy one, you will not see any difference. You will not feel really any difference when it's dry. So I've gone into presentations recently in the past week where I've had a piece of 12 by 24 where it was cut in half with our little tape, and I brought it to the customer. I said, okay, it's dry, touch it. And they touched it and they go, I said, which side is it? They go, I don't know. And you know what? I touched both sides and I couldn't tell you either. And then I sprayed the water on it just with a simple spray test on both sides, and they did it with their hands, and I go, which side is it now? And it was obvious. And it was significant, and it was something that you just went, okay, I can feel it. You can demonstrate that to a customer very easily that way. And then if your customer says, I'd really like to have more grip, then you can maybe do another minute on that same side that has already been treated. let it dry, do the whole test, and then run it again and say, are we there now? And they'll probably be able to say, okay, that's plenty. But again, you only feel it when it's activated with water. So it's the spraying on the water. Otherwise, it's almost, you can't tell that it's there, which is an interesting thing. So the three important things to test before application is to make sure that the material, the product is compatible. This is more of an issue when it comes to the stones. And we'll talk about which stones. It's the siliceous stones, the ones that have silica in them, and it is not the calcareous stones. And let me just say that immediately. You cannot use this on marble, limestone, travertine, anything that has calcareous materials in them. It doesn't work on that. It's not for that. That's a major issue to understand with this product before you get involved, before, you know, if you're looking for that type of a slip resistance treatment, it is not this product. This product is good for stones like granite. It's good for quartzite. It's good for slate, porphyro, lava stone, some of the more hip new stones that are out there. I've seen recently a shower that was done entirely with lava stone, which was a surprise to me, something new to me. It can be used there, but it cannot be used on calcareous stones. So number one, make sure that the product is compatible. There are some, for you Sharpies with stone, there are some granites that have a lot of calcareous material in the veining, the exotic ones. You need to test that and make sure that it doesn't, that it still works with the calcareous stones. And you ask me, why does it not work with the calcareous stones? Because it's really meant to react with the silica, feldspar, those type of materials, and not with the calcareous material in the stone. So there's the technical reason. All right, so go back to the other slide before we move to this really quickly, just make sure I covered everything. So, and this is really important for you too, is that given that the treatment is irreversible, you want to make sure that your customer and you and everybody is on board that you're about to do a treatment that is irreversible, because you're not going to be able to fix this. You could grind it, I guess, but we just you know, we want you to realize that it's irreversible. And then also we want you to determine how much time you need in order to get the DCOF that you need, if that is what you're going for. We have recently been contacted by some manufacturers who shipped some material that was R10 and it was supposed to be R11. And so, you know, in cases like that, you have to make sure that you're actually getting to the value that you want, and you've figured out how many minutes it takes to get there. Most likely it's just going to be a minute or 2 minutes, but it could be more depending on, you know, we don't know what material you're testing. So you need to test that and get that right. Okay, go ahead, Grace. Thanks. So how do you actually run the test? And this is the simplicity of the product. All right, first of all, you have to have a clean piece. You have to be dealing with a clean, and that sounds like that's a silly thing to say, but sometimes, you know, if you have dust or you have dirt on or anything, make sure it's clean. So then you apply it. You can apply it if it's just a single piece. If it were me, I would apply it with a paintbrush, just like you saw in the video. A paintbrush would be fine. A lamb's wool is nice if you're used to using lamb's wool, because you have a larger surface. You can buy those 24-inch surface lamb's wool, and you can do a larger area in one pull. And and you also get a nice even application. That's more of a European thing, but you can find these lamb's wool applicators in the paint section at Home Depot, or in a lot of you pro shops, you have this sort of thing. But lamb's wool is really the preferred when you're actually doing the application, and you can get used to doing that on the single piece, especially if it's a big piece like a 24 by 24. Or you can use a white pad, which is easy to find in paint stores and, you know, grocery stores, just about anywhere. So you let it react for a minute, and make sure, this is really important too as you're doing this, you make sure that the surface remains wet, which if you're doing it in a normal situation indoors, that's probably not that big of a deal, and it's only for a minute. But if you're outdoors or someplace where you have heat or you have wind or something, it could conceivably dry. And so you want to make sure that you maintain the surface wet for that 1 minute period. Again, shouldn't be a big deal. but it also means that you'll probably want to do smaller areas at one time so that you can keep that, that 1 minute thing going. Then what you do after the 1 minute, you take your wet vac and you remove the residue really quickly. This is a fantastic way to do it easily. Or if you don't have a wet vac, take your microfiber cloth or your mop and make sure that you can get up the residue. Then you rinse with water. And then you need to neutralize the surface with the water with a little bit of the Cleaner Pro, which is our neutral cleaner, or any neutral cleaner. Doesn't have to be a lot. Just a capful per gallon is what we'd recommend, or even less. And that neutralizes the surface because you never want to leave any kind of acid or alkaline on the surface. This is an acidic treatment, okay? That's why it does the micro etching or the micro roughness that we're talking about, the micro abrasion, all right? That's how you run the test. It's how you do the actual application as well. So then what you want to do is evaluate the result and make sure that you've got it the way you need it. You can either do that with a hand or a foot, or if you really have to have precision, you'll want to have that tested. You can have these things tested right there. You could send it to somebody, you know, whatever needs to happen. That's a really important thing to make sure you get the time right. So if you figure out that a minute is your perfect time, then that's what your number is. If it's 2 minutes, then you know that's what it is. So that's the most important thing, is to determine what level of grip you get with the time that you're using. Get that part figured out ahead of time. All right. Now, let me also make the obvious question too, or not the obvious question, but the obvious comment that if you already have an application where the materials have already been installed, then you're a little bit stuck. You're going to have to do this in an inconspicuous area of the floor that you can do your testing on, and it's a little bit trickier when it's already been installed. But we anticipate that it's actually the case in a lot of cases where people realize they put something down that's too slippery, or they realize it's slippery when it's wet, and then they want to fix something. You're just going to have to do it in an inconspicuous spot, or if they have attic stock that is loose, that would be really ideal. Then you do it on a loose piece anyways. All right, so just a quick comment for you people that know us. If you're going to clean well the tile before the prep, you need to know the pH scale, and if you've got an inorganic stain, use Dieter Deck. If you have a organic stain, use PS87 just to make sure it's clean. Or if it's something right out of the box, you should be able to just use the neutral cleaner, and that will be the treatment prep prior to doing the testing. Next slide. Okay. So how do you apply it? As we said, I'm just going to repeat it because this is the same thing as the actual test. And you've already got, all right, wait a minute. I see a question from Manu. Go ahead, Manu.
Yes, good evening to everybody. I was going to first of all ask for the travertine, you inserted. And once it's applied for 1 or 2 minutes, what is the Europe, they use the R for anti-slip. What is it, R11, R12, R13? That's one question.
It all depends on the material. And in some cases, you can reach the R11. And so it really depends on the material. Because in a lot of cases, sometimes you'll get a material that's an R10 that's already, well, anyways, you can get to R11, but it's something you would need to test on that specific material. It really depends on the specific material because there's so much variety in porcelain manufacturing. As you guys may or may not know, I came from the porcelain business, started with Fiandra, worked with Pastorelli, worked with the Atlas Group, etc. So my experience just with Italian porcelain, I also worked for Florida Tile. So there's a lot of variety in the slip resistance and the glazes between all these manufacturers. And then when you get to other countries, like from Turkey to China, et cetera, it's almost impossible to give you an answer of saying, yes, it's going to be 2 minutes for R11. Okay. But if I were a betting man, I would say by 2 minutes that you'll most likely will be at R11, if not with just one treatment.
Okay, my second question, can it be applied on a regular glaze tile, which is not porcelain?
Yes, it can be applied on ceramic, on the glazed porcelain. Yes, it can be applied. So the excellent question that is actually coming up. But and let me just say this: this is why it's so important to test first, is because we do not really recommend that you use this on a polished porcelain, for instance, because it could give a streaking effect. But we've also had customers that said, oh, what the hell, I'm going to rip it out anyways. So let's see if it works and let's see if my customer likes it. So they applied it on a polished porcelain and the customer says, great, I'm fine with that. So on a glazed porcelain, it really depends on the quality level, depends on that particular glaze. You would need to test it on there and show it to your customer and say, is this something that works for you? Because the higher the glazing is and the more shine you're getting, the more possibility that you'll see some kind of, you'll see the microabrasion. I will tell you that on matte finish glazed porcelains, you won't see it. It's invisible, really. But it could be on high glaze, I don't know. Or maybe it's an inexpensive glaze from some low-cost producer someplace where you bought 50-cent tile. So that's why you have to test it. Excellent question.
Yes. Okay. To finish, I live in a country where there's a lot of dirt. When you apply that, because I know that usually when you have granulated anti-slip tiles, it attracts dirt. Once you use that product, does it attract dirt, or it's going to be as easy to clean?
No, that's an excellent question too, and we will address that later, but I'll address it now and repeat it later because it's really, really important. As I said, when the surface is dry, it's as if it's not there. So if you were sweeping the floor and it's dry, all that dirt would sweep off just like it was any kind of normal part of the tile, other parts of the tile that were not treated. So when it's dry, you're not going to have any problem removing that. Now, when you're going to use a cleaner and it's wet, then you are going to have to continue. You're going to have more. You're going to have to scrub more. You'll have to do maintenance the same way that you do with any slip-resistant surface. Is it requires regular maintenance. But the advantage of this is that if it is dry and you're sweeping off the dirt, you'll be able to remove that just as easily as it was in any situation.
Perfect.
But
my last question.
Point, if it's wet and you're using cleaning fluid, you will have to scrub and you will have to do a correct cleaning.
Yes. My last question is, will there be any alteration in color?
No.
Okay,
the only time that that is really an important question, and that that we'll address again, but I'll address it now. That is a major part of this, the appeal of this product, is that, as I said, when you apply it and it's dry, I cannot tell the difference. I dare you to tell the difference. I don't think you'll be able to. And even when it's wet, it's not changing the color. It's just changing that slip resistance. But this is also a reason why you want to do a test, because some customers are so incredibly picky that, God forbid, maybe somehow they see something, I don't know. You want to show it to them and say, this is what you're getting. And I know that from my experience with the bit I've tested and seen tested, I couldn't tell any difference in color whatsoever. Excellent question, though. These are all things that your customers will ask, and that's why doing a test is mandatory, in my opinion, and showing your customer what you're going to get to them.
If I have more questions, I'll go on. Thank you very much. Sure.
All right. Anyways, thanks, Manu. I appreciate those questions. They're excellent. So, anyway, your application is every bit as easy as I just said. You're gonna make sure it's clean. You're gonna apply the product. You're gonna wait the 1 minute. You're going to suck up the residue or wipe off the residue, and then you're going to rinse and you're going to neutralize with the cleaner, neutral cleaner. So it's very, very simple to do, and it's very quick to do also. A minute is a very short period of time anyways. Question that you did not ask, and a question that I will answer, is what about the grout? And our research and our testing has shown that it doesn't affect the grout. So that's not a concern. So you would do the entire area, grout and everything, And that makes it easier to apply, so you're not concerned about just painting tiles and all that sort of thing. So it's easy to apply in that sense. Now, for those of you that have maybe a very particular color in the grout and you're concerned about whether or not this is going to do anything, the only real answer there, frankly, is for you to, when you're doing your test, take 2 pieces and grout it with that grout just to make sure, just to make absolutely sure, because I can't guarantee, Fila can't, nobody can really guarantee that there's not some kind of strange grout that you find somewhere that when anything is applied to it, the color changes. My poor colleagues in grout manufacturers that were dear friends, they call me up all the time and they say, oh man, this grout color changed because of the way that they mix the grout or how the sunshine or whatever. It seems like a lot of things can happen with grout, but our experience is that this does not affect the grout. But if you have any concerns, make sure to test it first, just to be sure, so you can say to your customer, we tested it, I showed it to you, it's fine. Here it is, you know, so it covers you, so you don't get caught up in some kind of debate about grout, that nobody wants to do that. But it's something, if it is a concern, do the test that way, just to avoid that question or that problem. But according to what we've seen, it does not affect the cementitious grout or the epoxy grout or any of these. But if you have a concern, test it. All right, next, please. So this is our technical how to apply video that you'll give to your customers to show them how to do it. Tells you which stones it could be used on, shows the measurements and the micro roughness, increasing the slip resistant. Interesting, this is a water-based treatment too, which in some cases is really important. There is no surface film, another important selling point. You see how you apply it, you're just gonna kind of paint it on like with a paintbrush. Determine your contact time, as we mentioned, 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever. It must be clean and dry first. It is a ready-to-use product. You don't have to mix it with anything. This is what a lamb's wool applicator looks like for those of you that didn't know what I was talking about. So that's how you would do a larger area, like on an outdoor patio. So you leave it react for that minute. Then you suck it up with the wet back, which is really, if any of you don't use a wet back, you're really hurting yourself. It's much easier that way. Then we're just kind of mopping it up and rinsing it with a mop with the neutral cleaner, as we mentioned, and you're done. This is a fast application. You're ready to go. It's not like this is going to take half the day or it's going to lock things up for a period of time. It's very, very quick. So you could do a reasonable area in just like probably less than an hour, and you're ready to go. Here's your coverage, which was another question that some of you may wonder. How much am I going to be able to cover with a liter? So count on 100 square feet. It really depends on if you have to add any more to go up to more than a minute, or if you have areas that are beginning to dry and you want to keep it wet. So up to 100 square feet as coverage for that liter. And by the way, we're keeping this as a liter because this is an international product. Now, the other thing too is we mentioned, where can you use it? So ceramic tile, porcelain tile, quarry tile, granite, which is a siliceous stone. The other siliceous stones, as I mentioned, are products like quartzite and slate, and you can look those up and speak with your stone supplier as far as which ones are siliceous stones. And of course, test it just to make sure that, I've also been in the stone business long enough to know that if somebody tells me what it is, they either don't know or somebody just put a name on something, and so you don't always know what it is. So bluestone, brownstone, trachyta, there's a whole bunch of other siliceous stones. And again, the whole chemistry is that it's siliceous means that it's made up of the silicates, and that's what it's reacting with in order to give the microabrasion that does the effect. So that's why it's that, not the calcareous stones. Okay. Easy grip, as we talked about, is kind of a light version, shall we say, easier version for the normal people. The only difference in how you do the key steps is that you do 10 minutes of keeping it wet in order to do the application. So it's 10 minutes. It's a lot longer. Same steps. All right. So then that means the coverage. So if you've got a half a liter, that means your coverage